Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dear devotees, respects, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. My name is Mahatma Dasa. A little bit about myself. I joined ISKCON in September of 1977, and I got my spiritual name May 22nd of 1986. That's the day that Sulochana Prabhu was murdered. Krishna's used me somehow to do a little service. I was a right-hand man to Paratrikananda 1990 and 91 when we started the Srila Prabhupada Festival. In 1996, I did the Srila Prabhupada family reunion, thinking that Prabhupada founded ISKCON for Istagosti, communication, unity, cooperation, trust, and love. I haven't done any of this. Krishna uses us to do these things, so I cannot get the credit. I'm not trying to talk down to you or to seem like I want to be a big leader. I'm happy with my life as it is, with a good wife, a few good friends, and that's it. You're going to see soon an interview I did of Hrishikesh Dasa Prabhu about his 660-page book called Killing for Krishna. And I wanted to say that we have to find a solution. The solution is Prabhupada paradigm only, POP. To follow the order of Prabhupada or suggestion of Prabhupada, that we have to follow the example of Jayananda Das Prabhu. Jayananda Prabhu is the only confirmed by Srila Prabhupada Siddha disciple. We have to start following the example of Jayananda. We can establish 108 centers worldwide based on Jayananda Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's POP, and original books. We have to know the history of abuse against Prabhupada and his followers. And then we have to know who is who. And this book, Killing for Krishna, describes very nicely who is who in our movement, at least in part of the movement. It's an isolated case, but it's important. Now to the interview. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
These rogues, so-called acharyas, are the most dangerous elements in human society. These pseudo-religionists are heading toward the most obnoxious place in the universe, hell, after completion of their spiritual master business, which they conduct simply for sense gratification. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wrote this in Sri Ishupanishad.
Hare Krishna, respects, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now I am trying to create unity, better communication. There is so much sectarianism in the movement. Of course, we know of violence, such as the one that Sulochana Prabhu experienced, and I'm making an effort so that never happens again, because it's not pleasing to Prabhupada that his disciples be killed, or that we have a reputation, that we kill each other, and so forth. So it's nowhere in our scriptures, it's nowhere given as an example, honorable example of something to do. Today I am with the author of Killing for Krishna, Henry Doktorski.
It's a real treat to be with you, Mahatma Prabhu. I enjoy your association. I find that you're a very loving soul, and I thank you for your friendship. Regarding the way I make my money is as a musician, mostly. I play accordion, piano, organ. That's what I'm focusing on, mostly working for churches. I also teach chess for kids, and among other things, I love to research and to write, which my most recent effort is this book, Killing for Krishna, The Danger of Deranged Devotion.
What did you do at New Vrindavan for 15 years?
I had a mostly wonderful time. I mean, New Vrindavan it's a holy place of pilgrimage. Prabhupada founded it and visited 4 times, and what I saw at New Vrindavan impressed me. I saw a community of spiritual seekers that practiced what they preached. I was looking for something more radical, and the Hare Krishnas, the men shaved their heads and left the Sika in the back, and they wore these bed sheets, the Indian garments, and they were vegetarians also, which I admired a lot. At New Vrindavan, I mean, for 15 years, I did a multitude of different services. I did teach music at the Gurukul for a little bit. I helped build Prabhupada's palace, helped design the gold leaf patterns on the domes and did gold leafing myself. And then after that, I was sent out on Sankirtan, first distributing Prabhupada's books in parking lots in Ohio with Tapapunj Das Brahmachari, who also figures prominently in my book. When we, New Vrindavan, transferred into doing the PIC, which is fundraising, basically, hitting people up, getting donations just for the money. Mm-hmm. And we were all in disguise. I was very good at that. I was New Vrindavan's #1 men's collector in 1 year. And then around 85, the grind of being out on the road all that time was adversely affecting my health. So my spiritual master, Kirtanananda Swami, asked me to come back to the farm, and I helped found the book publishing at New Vrindavan Palace Publishing.
So you were collecting so much money that you almost you made yourself sick. How much money do you think you collected?
It could have been $500,000. It could have been $750,000. I was certainly not the top collector. The women collected much more than the men, but that's what I did. But at a certain point, my collections dropped, and Bhaktipad said, "Well, we have work for you here at the farm." So, book publishing. I started Palace Charities, the vegetarian Meals on Wheels for Wheeling and senior citizens. And then in the interfaith period, I was minister of music for the community, in charge of the orchestra. I played the pipe organ, composed music for the services, like that. And I finally left in October of '93, when I rejected my spiritual master after I had become convinced that he was not what he appeared to be.
Do you think Sulochana Prabhu was feeling anger? Do you feel anger?
There's no doubt in my mind that Sulochana was extremely angry, especially with Kirtanananda Swami. He felt that Kirtanananda had stolen his wife. It's not exactly as I see it. I mean, his wife did love Kirtanananda as a disciple loves the spiritual master more than she loved her own husband. And at one point, when he told her, "We're leaving the community, I do not want to live here anymore," she rebelled. This was in June 1994, and she refused to go with him. And she stayed at the community under the protection of Bhaktipad, and Sulochana was pretty much forced to leave at that time.
Sulochana, shortly after that, decided to get his children, and then he took them away. And I understand they followed him, and at gunpoint they got the children back.
Correct. When he left New Vrindavan, he took his 2 sons, Sarva and Nimai. Nimai was still in diapers. Sarva was about 3 years old, and he invited or ordered his wife to join him. She refused. So he gave her plenty of time to decide. And then at some point he said, "Okay, it's time to go," and he left. He was going to his parents' home in Royal Oak, Michigan. Immediately, she went to Bhaktipad and said, "My husband has left, taken my 2 children. I want to stay here. Can you help me?" And he made some phone calls, and 3 New Vrindavan Kshatriyas.
Warriors.
Yes, warrior Kshatriyas, enforcers, got into a van with the mother, and they began following the route that they thought he was taking.
The basic need of a father to see his children. That's what started everything.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you. Sulochana certainly loved his 2 sons, and just the love between all of them is so apparent. And he felt that there was something crooked at New Vrindavan, and it was time to leave. He didn't know all the details, but he felt that his wife refused to go, and he wanted his children back. He wanted his wife back. He wanted his children back, and that's the source of that anger.
So he wanted his children not to be raised in that environment, and but the management at New Vrindavan wanted his wife there because I understand she was a big collector.
Jamuna was not a collector at all, but she did important service, mostly in the nursery, caring for children. And but what she had was a real love for her spiritual master and a submissive mentality for him. And she was, whatever service they wanted her to do, so she was a submissive disciple. And that's, being submissive at New Vrindavan was all in all at that time.
People say that his child was also killed, so he may not speak or something like that. That's all speculation, right? What happened with his child? He was only 3 years old when he passed away, correct?
Correct. I've spoken to Jamuna, the mother, and also an eyewitness who was there right after it happened. The boy was just playing with some children at the boathouse, at the ghat, at New Vrindavan, at the pond, and he fell in, and the other children were so young they couldn't help him climb back out, and he drowned, and it was very, very, very sad. But there was no animosity in that as a retribution for Sulochana leaving that. In fact, Bhaktipad did say later, he said that it appears that there's some bad karma in the family.
There are so many books. I mean, there's already a book that Sulochana wrote, The Guru Business. And then there is the book Monkey on a Stick, right, that was written. And then if you go on the internet, there's so much information about Sulochana that devotees have shared. Why they need to write a 660-page book on Sulochana?
The Guru Business is basically his commentary on Prabhupada's letters, which reveal that there was corruption amongst the highest management in ISKCON. All right, and it's a very important book. Monkey on a Stick, although there's a lot of correct things in there, you cannot trust it, because even the authors admitted that they created characters and scenes in the book to advance the storyline. So it's not historical. It's like a hit movie coming out based on someone's life. It's not the life as it happened, but it's based on that person's life. So that's Monkey on a Stick. And then, so none of these really tell the story about the murder conspiracy that led to Sulochana's assassination. It was 16 years ago, in 2002, when I decided that I wanted to research and write something about New Vrindavan. I'd lived there 15 years and wanted to share some of the really wonderful things that I experienced while I was there. And my time there really was 95% wonderful, all right? And I was a surrendered soul, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing to be living there. However, the more I began researching and talking to devotees and discovering more about the criminal activities and the immoral activities that were going on that most of us knew nothing about, you know, at the highest levels of leadership there. I became somewhat disillusioned, you know, at that.
So how you find out about this? Because you were talking that you got the whole archives, which
Yes.
was locked up behind bars.
Oh, yes.
Somehow, by Krishna's arrangement, you got all of that, which is how many pages would you say?
You know, I've never counted them, but some tens of thousands of pages. His personal correspondence, New Vrindavan publications, trial transcripts numbering in thousands of pages, investigative reports by private investigators. Anyway, somehow, by Krishna's mercy, I got this around 2003. I mean, at that time in 2003, I had already had about 300 pages, a manuscript about New Vrindavan history. And I showed it to Tapa Bunj, who was very friendly with me, and he said, Hrishikesh, he said, come with me, I have something I have to show you. And up at the top of this hill was this semi-trailer truck, and he unlocked the padlock and opened it up, and we climbed up inside, and he showed me this archive, which was just keeping there and getting rained on and dripped on by water from the roof. Precious. It was like discovering Captain Kidd's buried treasure.
Exactly.
And it took me 10, 12 years before I could finally read through all this.
Now I understand that you took pictures of everything and then soon after somebody came and got all that material back?
That's a different story. A few years later, one of my godbrothers called me to his house, and he had a companion archive, which had also come from the house, which was removed a few years earlier. And he began to have doubts about his spiritual master, and he asked me to come and look at it, and I photographed his archive. So the total is, you know, several tens of thousands of pages. But in the archives were confidential documents, classified, that probably maybe only Bhaktipad and his librarian were aware of.
Amos, the archives, do you find the signature of the leaders, or of any of the leaders of New Vrindavan, that proves that they were involved in illicit activity?
Yes, there's at least one instance where there's a handwritten note, or a photocopy of a handwritten note written by a Gurukul student who claims that one of the sannyasis at New Vrindavan was involved in the murder plot.
As I recall, I'm talking about a note in which somebody says, I did not have sex with you because I did not finish, or something like that, and it was signed. Do I recall correctly?
That was a letter Bhaktipad had written to one of the Gurukul boys he had given oral sex back in the 1980s. And
he signed it?
Yes. Well, he doesn't say that he did it, all right? But I have talked to the boy, who's now 50 years old, or close to it. And in that letter, Bhaktipad is just explaining that what we did was not really sex because I never had an orgasm.
You said that there were private investigators hired by New Vrindavan, and you got all those documents. This is in relationship to what?
Regarding Sulochana's murder, New Vrindavan had hired at least one private investigator, I think more than one, and they would interview devotees and ask them questions about Sulochana or the people involved in the conspiracy, and the devotees interviewing them would tell them what they wanted them to hear. All right.
Were they telling the truth?
Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure. I mean, a lot of the murder conspirators are not telling the truth. I mean, that's what took so long for this book to come out. From the very beginning, my motivation, I knew I wasn't going to make any money on this, all right? I mean, from the very beginning, come on. Who makes money on books like this?
Okay, so if the motivation is not money, what are you trying to accomplish?
My motivation was love. Love of the truth, all right? I have always been a truth seeker. I do not like duplicity. And there's been so much duplicity at New Vrindavan and in ISKCON itself, all right, over several decades. It's like solving a puzzle for me, and that's something that I just wanted to do. And as I explained earlier, for about 10 years, I set this book aside and worked on other books because so many key witnesses in the Sulochana murder conspiracy were saying completely different things. And I didn't know who to trust and who not to trust.
You almost gave up.
Well, I did for a period of time, all right? But then in November of 2016, I think it was, after looking back at my manuscript, I had an insight, and all the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, and I knew who was telling the truth and who was lying. It's just like, it just the picture became complete. And then I said to myself, okay, this has got to be the first book of the 3 that I'm working on that will be published.
So you felt that you wrote this book because you want the ISKCON devotees to know the truth.
The book is written specifically for ISKCON devotees and Vaishnavas, and of course non-ISKCON devotees also. Anyone who's following in the footsteps of the Lord Chaitanya. You read this book, Prabhupada is held in the highest regard. There's not one word that contradicts what he says or casts any doubt. He is the authority, all right, in this book. And
you consider Prabhupada to be your authority?
I do. Regarding the people who think that I'm produced this book to make money. You read the book, it's targeted to ISKCON devotees. It's not targeted to the general public. I mean, a general public is going to pick this up, he's going to be bewildered. It's written in the lingo of the devotees, you know. So the general public is not going to. It's for devotees because there's something important for them that I want them to understand.
Was Sulochana a drug addict? There's people that said that he was a drug addict.
I have never heard that he was a drug addict.
You met him personally?
No, I did not. I knew his wife after his death. I taught piano to her children.
So do you think he was a drug addict?
No, of course not. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he did take recreational drugs from time to time, alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, but he was not an addict, all right? I mean, some people have addictive personalities where they become addicted to something, but other people can just enjoy in moderation the same intoxicants and be able to walk away from it.
Do you know who has called him an addict?
I do not know.
And you know the background?
No, I don't. I don't know anything. I've never heard anyone say he was a drug addict.
Yeah.
Although Tapapunj does say that he was very fearful that Sulochana would get drunk or stoned and attempt to kill Bhaktipat. But I don't even think he said he was a drug addict.
Now, how about drug use from the other side, opposite to Sulochana?
Well, as far as I know, very few of the murder conspirators took recreational drugs. Only 3 that I can think of. One was, of course, Kirtanananda Swami, and
what drug? How do you find that out? I think you said something. You went and talked to his sister, and then, yeah.
Well, we know he smoked marijuana after Prabhupada awarded him with sannyas, and
you mentioned another drug there.
Yeah, cocaine. He would use time to time. You know, ever since
friends also. Right?
Ever since Kirtanananda blooped from ISKCON back in September, October of '67, he never strictly, regularly followed the 4 regulative principles ever since then. And we, of course, we didn't know any of this for decades. We assumed, we were told, he was this pure, self-realized soul like this. But behind the scenes, with his buddy Hayagriva, who was notorious at New Vrindavan for enjoying illicit activities which were prohibited by the Gaudiya Vaishnava faith, Kirtananda and Hayagriva would sometimes attend parties with the homosexual Mexican men that were working at New Vrindavan as illegal laborers. And other reports too. I had one devotee tell me, and I believe he's telling the complete truth. He lived in California. He lived in New Vrindavan 2 years, maybe 82 to 83. And one time he burst into, he was friends with the comptroller of New Vrindavan, the financial manager. One day he was just passing by and they were friends, so he just burst into the living room and he was almost knocked out of the door by Kirtanananda Swami, who was leaving very quickly to his jeep out there. And then when this devotee picked himself up, he looked and there was the comptroller sitting there. There was a table and Bhaktipad's rocking chair was still rocking, and a bottle of Miller High Life beer with the fingers still dripping down. So, and then there was a $100 bill with a line of white powder on it. It's sitting between the two devotees.
So yeah, you talked about heroin too.
There,
But not from somebody else. That was his drug of choice.
yeah. So we never knew any of this, but both Bhaktipad and Hayagriva were enjoying these forbidden activities. In the case of the murder of Sulochana, I do not believe that drugs or alcohol had really any decision in it. These were rational people. They were clear thinking, and they decided that the pure devotee must be protected by any means from this rascal who's threatened death to the gurus.
But although Sulochana talked about violence, and he was armed at times, did he ever punch anybody? Did he ever push anybody? Did he ever shoot at anybody?
You know, I think Sulochana, I believe that
Had violence with anybody?
No. I've never heard a report that Sulochana ever shot at a person or punched them or was physical violence except to his wife. That was, and that was not enough to cause like great physical injury. One time she had a black eye and a handprint on her face.
Do you think this is part of the motivation that got him killed eventually, or not?
Sulochana was killed for two reasons. One is that he was exposing criminal and illegal activities at New Vrindavan, which would implicate Bhaktipad. And so that was one reason he had to be eliminated. The second was that he had threatened violence to the gurus. He carried guns. He would visit his friends and wave his guns in the air and shout death to the gurus. He frightened a lot of devotees in New Vrindavan, in Berkeley, Laguna Beach, Los Angeles. His friends really thought this guy was like out of control, you know. But one thing I will say, Sulochana never ever hurt anyone physically, except for his wife. But I believe that he had some insecurities. All right, he thought of himself as a Kshatriya, but he was averse to physical violence, and he felt he was combating such a huge, powerful, organized, undercover illegal enterprise, and he was just one little guy fighting against it. I think he had to exaggerate his threats in order to try to scare them. So I really think all his talk about violence and killing the gurus and killing Bhaktipad and Rameshwar, all right, I really think it was a bluff. But the devotees in New Vrindavan, the devotees in California, they took it seriously, and they decided we've got to eliminate this guy before he kills a guru.
Do you think that they killed him to exercise their power rather than because they were really scared of him?
I don't think so.
You think that they were genuinely scared of him?
I do. They were afraid that he was going to hide out in the woods at New Vrindavan with a high-powered rifle and shoot Bhaktipad. Up until the very end, you know, they wanted to protect the pure devotee, and if they were amiss, if somehow he got through and killed Bhaktipad, they said they would have to live with being cowards for the rest of their life. And for a Kshatriya, dishonor is worse than anything.
You choose to mention sexual activity on both sides, from Sulochana and also from the other side. Why do you choose to do that?
Because this, in some ways, this is a biography of Sulochana. It's really the story of the murder conspiracy, all right? But if you want to understand a character and what motivates them, how can you neglect talking about their sexual orientation or activities. All right? This is not any kind of erotic titillation. This is just describing the characters and their behaviors. I mean, if anyone wants to understand Kirtanananda Swami or Hayagriva, they have to understand the background, the sexual background, and Sulochana as well, I believe.
How many were involved, after all, in the conspiracy?
There were about a dozen devotees who were involved in the murder conspiracy in West Virginia, ISKCON, Cleveland, Ohio, and in Los Angeles and San Diego.
How many went to jail?
2 devotees were convicted regarding the murder of Sulochana. One was Tapapunj Swami, who spent, I think, 5 years in prison. And the other was the trigger man, Tirtha, Thomas Drescher, who is serving 2 life sentences right now and is currently incarcerated in West Virginia, where he's been in prison the last 32 years.
In your opinion, 2 went to jail. How many should have gone to jail if people had done the right thing?
Well, Kirtanananda Swami also served a prison term.
Not for the murder.
No, not for the
I'm
murder.
talking about the murder. All 12 of them?
I hesitate to say this person should have gone to prison and that person should have gone to prison. All right, just my nature. I'm not one to condemn something like that. All right, I lived at New Vrindavan. I know.
Would it be just to say then that some more should have gone to prison?
I lived in the community. I was involved in the cult of Kirtanananda. I was brainwashed, just like Radhanath Swami and Tirtha and Tapapunj and hundreds and hundreds of others. All right. So I know that if I was called to assist in this murder, I probably would have done it. All right. We weren't in our right mind. We were afflicted with deranged devotion. My book is about deranged devotion. And I know what that's like.